I'm now going to invite Dr. Beloo Mehra. I was just reading her biography, and honestly, that's quite an in-depth one. I'm going to let her words speak for herself, because whatever I say about what qualification she has is going to fall short about what she's going to share. But she is she's a senior academic mentor at Sri Aurobindo Society. One sec. I don't want to get it wrong. And she also edits their online journal. But I think most beautiful, what she really has to offer is the gift of mentoring and furthering the works of Sri Aurobindo. So I'm just going to invite you to share from your heart in this beautiful space on the occasion of the book launch.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. She said to speak from the heart, but I've been a student of Anand Bhaiya. I don't call him Dr. V. Ananda Reddy, but in this space, of course, he is the esteemed author of this book. So I've been a student of his for many years, and as somebody pointed out, that he's very structured in his talks. So my mind also works in a little bit structured way. So I have to write down some notes as to what I felt about the book when I read it. So I'm just going to refer to some points I jotted down just this morning. So before I begin, let me just extend my namaskars and warm greetings to Dr. Jayanti Ravi, Secretary, Auroville Foundation, and Dr. Gopal Jayaraman from Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts. And welcome to all the, namaskars to all the guests from Auroville, SACAR Trust, Sri Aurobindo Ashram. And of course, a very, very heartfelt greeting to my elder brother, Anand Bhaiya, who is the author of this book, who is the reason why we are here today. I felt very honored and privileged and really blessed when he asked me to share a few thoughts about what I think about the book. And I was one of the few ones, I think, who were blessed to have an advance copy of the book. I actually remember the date when he lovingly, with his signature, gave me a copy of that book, August 9th. And it was late evening. And I went home. In fact, after that, we went out for a little idli. And then I went home and I left the book to be picked up next day or next week. But I still wanted to skim through the book a little bit. And the first thing that I felt was I felt very drawn towards was the way the book has been organized. As somebody pointed out, there are two sections or two parts to the book, titles of all the chapters and the parts. They tell you a little bit about what you will get once you start reading about the book. I also think that maybe it's not just two parts, because the epilogue itself is a very important part of the book itself. And I'll come to that in a minute. But let me just speak about what is very unique about the organization. So the part one of the book, when you opened, it's titled Sri Aurobindo, The Future. And it's very interesting, this title that has been used there, because the title itself tells you that even though there will be a looking back at the past history of the evolutionary march of spirit in humanity and the Indian spiritual journey as such, but all that is being done with a purpose and a very clear focus towards future. And that's how he introduces Sri Aurobindo to, especially those for whom Sri Aurobindo is still very new. So he introduces Sri Aurobindo as a messenger of the future. And that's what I thought that was so very interesting about this book. And reading through, there are 3 chapters in this first part. And what I felt was a great sense of calm and assurance that no matter how horrible the world is at the moment, no matter what the turmoils or the chaos that we see or hear about or read about, there is Sri Aurobindo, and there is the mother, and there is that promise of the glorious supramental future that awaits. So that, I think, is the really like a punching way to start the book, really admirable in that sense. And those of us who've had this blessing of spending some concentrated time with the works of Sri Aurobindo and the mother know this, that this is very unique aspect, unique quality in the force in their words. But what is very interesting in this book, Sri Aurobindo, The Grand Synthesis, is that here someone like Anand Bhaiya, who has spent several decades synthesizing and integrating within him all the major and minor works of Sri Aurobindo and the mother, he brings out this note of assurance in Sri Aurobindo's words and Sri Aurobindo's vision in a very, very simple way, which makes it even more assuring and calming in that sense. So that is a section that is really a very unique, I felt, as a way to start a book on Sri Aurobindo. So what happens is that, as we read through these first chapters, the outcome of his masterful analysis is like a kind of a threefold, I felt. One, there is, of course, a brilliant summary of of Sri Aurobindo's message. The second is that the key point in the message, he's elaborated upon that using very relevant, very pertinent contemporary situations and realities, especially if you read through the chapter on 5 Dreams of Sri Aurobindo. And the third thing is that reading these chapters also do this amazing job of lighting that flame of aspiration to pick up the original works where Sri Aurobindo has written, from where he's citing. If you have already read it, pick them up again, maybe a third time, to savor that rasa again and again. So that is really beautiful in the way, masterful writing of that part of the book. And I think maybe that's why he kind of knew that what would enable that kind of a clarity or that assurance to the reader, which is why in this very chapter on 5 Dreams of Sri Aurobindo, he refers to those lines from Savitri, which all of us love. God shall grow up while the wise men talk and sleep, and for man shall not know the coming till its hour, and belief shall be not till the work is done. And belief shall be not till the work is done. And then he starts the work of summarizing 10 books of Sri Aurobindo. But I guess summarizing is probably not the right word. At least that's not how I felt, that they are merely summaries. Before I go to that part 2, where those 10 books are described, there is another important thing that I felt very, I was very drawn to, was like, throughout the book, he's also referred to several conversations and talks of Sri Aurobindo with the disciples, which were recorded by either Purani ji or Nirod Baran ji or other Anil Baran Roy. And, when you come across those little talks and conversations in between, as a reader, I felt, here's Sri Aurobindo himself explaining his own profound points, and then Anand Bhaiya is sort of becoming the sutradhar of conveying that. So, that felt like, a multi-layered experience in the mind. So that, again, was very enjoyable, a delightful experience. So coming to the part 2 of the book, where the 10 books have been presented, he's titled that whole section as Sri Aurobindo's Contribution to Humanity. And the very first chapter, which is titled Stages of Sri Aurobindo's Literary Output, that's like a very, very, very important chapter to be included in this book. And I felt that the very fact that it has been included and the way it has been organized and presented, it can really give a reader, especially those who are new to Sri Aurobindo, the right key to enter the works of Sri Aurobindo. And in fact, as has been said earlier from Professor Gurmeet Singh ji also and others, that the whole book, in fact, has been written with this object in mind, that the young seekers, those who have an aspiration to pick up the works of Sri Aurobindo and to go through them patiently and carefully, but somehow get intimidated by the very volume and size of these books, here is this answer. This book gives the answer. Don't fear. Start with me. I'll show you the path. Walk slowly, come with me. So that's how this book communicates, I think. But going back to that one chapter, Sri Aurobindo's stages of Sri Aurobindo's literary output. It's very interesting how Anand Bhaiya writes. Rather than me paraphrasing, I thought I'll just read 2 paragraphs, short paragraphs from this chapter, which will give us a way of how the rest of the book proceeds. So he writes, I don't have the page number here. He writes, Sri Aurobindo can be understood on 3 different levels of consciousness, which are visible in his outer world action. Although he has always said that we should not judge him from his outer surface activities, we see that there were different stages in his life, and as he moved from one stage to another, he displayed a different consciousness. Aurobindo Ghosh of Baroda was not the same as Sri Aurobindo of Pondicherry. There was a remarkable growth in his consciousness all along. This is what I will trace, the author will trace for our benefit and see in each stage what has been his outer contribution, especially in literature, as we are here to focus on his writings, not on his inner realizations. I have categorized his life's journey into 3 stages to demarcate his literary output, which show different levels of inspiration and consciousness. Although we do not know the level of consciousness behind each stage of his writings, I venture into such a classification only to facilitate the different stages of his written works. And of course, the 3 stages that he speaks of then are the mental stage, the over-mental stage, and the supramental stage. And in the supramental stage, of course, that's where Deepshikha's insistence on, how can you forget Savitri? There is a 2-paragraph wonderful description of this super epic mantric poem, Savitri. And there again, I think for someone who's new to Sri Aurobindo or relatively new to Sri Aurobindo, or even when somebody has spent years studying Sri Aurobindo, you get, you come face to face with phrases like spiritual panacea and future scripture of humanity. And, somewhere you get the sense that it's okay. The mind, the intellect gets this assurance. Even if you don't understand Savitri, it's all right. Actually, that's the exact phrase he uses. It's all right. It's okay. And then, of course, he reminds what Mother used to say, to read Savitri in the true manner is to practice integral yoga. So this tone of assurance, this tone of that the, master is there, the mother is there to take you along is something very interesting and unique aspect of the book. And then after this 2-paragraph description, he gives us another assurance. And where he talks about this deep truth about all spiritual works. And he says, it's sort of like, as if it's coming from this inner poise of a bhakta. He says, this is the greatness of all spiritual works. We cannot understand them by ourselves. So don't even try. However brilliant we may be intellectually, we need the Ashirvad, the grace of the Divine Master who is ever with us. With this, he launches into the description, the summary, the presentation, however, whatever word will fit in depending on how we read what he has presented as the grand synthesis. So then there are the 10 chapters, and again divided into 3 subsections. I particularly, it's like, he starts from life divine, the life divine, and ends with the Savitri, a legend and a symbol. But I'll just take 1 or 2 examples before I conclude. In the chapter on the life divine, like I said, it's not really a summary as such, because how would you summarize the life divine? So what he does is something very helpful. As a reader, I found very helpful and very engaging as well. Because I think after you've read that, what the feeling you get is that, now I am prepared to take up the book. You get a sense of preparation. He prepares you because he's not giving you like a cheat sheet. He's not even giving you what wonders await. He's presenting what the book is about. So what he's done in this chapter on the life divine is the last 7 pages of that chapter. It's like a masterful description of the very title of the book itself. And he does that by addressing 3 questions. What is the more profound implication of life? What is the divine? Can the life of a human being be transformed into a life divine? And these 7 pages address these 3 questions, and through that you get a sense, I'm really curious now. What is the real meaning of life? And can my life be transformed into divine life? Let me go through this huge life divine. So he does that in 7 chapters. He arouses this curiosity. He lights up that flame of, aspiration. So that I really encourage to read that chapter on the life divine. All the other chapters, of course. Then again in the essays on the Gita, 18 adhyayas of Gita, and then many, many essays, 2 series of Sri Aurobindo. But he speaks of 4 essential truths of Bhagavad Gita, selected in the light of Sri Aurobindo's essays on the Gita. 2 from the spiritual metaphysical point of view, and 2 from the yoga sadhana point of view. And very masterfully, again, very precisely, he speaks of those 4 essential truths. Similarly, when you get to the books on in the spirit and significance of Indian culture, one thing that appealed to me very much was his chapter on Isha Upanishad, which Sri Aurobindo also speaks of as the very foundation of the life divine. And there, as we know, the title of the book again gets justified because Isha Upanishad itself is a sort of like a synthesis or a reconciliation of what seem like contradictory oppositions. And to do that, he's only selected 3 verses, if I remember correctly, to highlight that aspect. So in that sense, each chapter is a full read in itself. You get the summary. Again, summary is not the right word, but I can't think of another word. You get the sense of the book itself. So I think, I started off by mentioning epilogue. So I want to come to that, which I think is another important part of the book and why that is very relevant. So that epilogue is, in a way, let me just remember what I felt. It's not really a meta summary. If each of the chapters are not summaries, obviously epilogue cannot be a meta summary of each of these chapters, but they bring a new light to what has been said in the previous 10 chapters. So after you've read the epilogue, my suggestion would be to go back and reread the earlier chapters, because now you'll have a different understanding of each of these chapters, having read how he has presented the synthesis part in Sri Aurobindo in that epilogue. I don't want to be the spoiler girl here of revealing what the epilogue is about. But what he said, that if Sri Aurobindo is the fulfillment of that Vedic prayer, you get an absolute clear reflection and answer of that in the epilogue part of his book. So I think I have, and in that sense, again, epilogue kind of justifies the title. And it fulfills the purpose and the truth of the title of this book, Sri Aurobindo, the Grand Synthesis. So I hope I have been able to give you a little teaser as to what this book is about. And maybe you will be, not maybe, you should spend some time reading through this book. And I really want to thank the organizers of the event for inviting me to share a few thoughts about the book. And my thanks to Indira Gandhi National Center of Arts for publishing this book. Very important book. Like I said, not only for the young minds, but we are all young in that sense, we are all seeking that truth. And my many, 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 many thanks and congratulations to Anand Bhaiya for really making this book available for us. So thank you.
I can't beat you to that. I remember as young children or even adults, when you would watch a good movie or read a good book, and somebody would come to say, you know what the story is, and you say, no, 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 don't watch because I want to see it for myself, experience and immerse. You're not being a spoiler. I think like the way you said, he whets the appetite. You whetted our appetite. Now really lay our hands on those books. And the books are available outside for sale, so please do grab a copy on your way out. But thank you so much. I mean, it almost seemed like the book came alive through your sharing. And if you can be so structured in your presentation, I wonder what your book, Understanding Contemporary India in the Light of Sri Aurobindo, may have been. So thank you for sharing such beautiful thoughts.